Welcome along to the 98 Not Out podcast, the latest episode. Remember to give it a like, tell your friends, subscribe, spread the word, and help us grow. This week, a cracker for you, as always, but this is a particular cracker. It's a cracker with daggers. Charles Dagnall, welcome back. It's always good to see you and hear your voice on 98 Not Out. How are you keeping?
I am very well. It's good to be back, gentlemen. As always, always a pleasure talking to you guys. And I'm doing all right. I've put on a little bit of weight over Christmas. Unlike you have the weight that you have taken off has actually been placed onto me, I fancy. So I'm endeavouring to be healthy in February and March to try and get into my trousers, basically. I've got numerous pairs of trousers back at home and jeans, which are a little bit tight to get into and just a bit of so yes, but otherwise I'm keeping very, very well, thank you. It's good to be back in the UK after doing a little bit of traveling and yeah, now it feels the countdown to the season is on. The weather's just got a little bit better and the daffodils are starting to bloom and you always feel that the season's not too far away. So very excited.
Yeah, I've just got back from walking the dog and it's really nice out there. Sunny afternoon. The sun's just going now, but very fresh. And I gather that you've been out on the golf course this afternoon.
I have been out on the golf course. I partnered friend of 98 Not Out, Mark Butcher. And neither of us were very good today. I was worse than him, but we only lost 2-1 today, which wasn't bad. But the other day, when we went out on Tuesday, I beat him and played like God. I'm not going to lie. I did play very, very well. Hit my best ever round in my history. So I went in with lots of positive thoughts. And after the first shot of the day, they just all went out of my head and negativity crept in and I just bottled it massively. So such is life. But yes, been out golfing today and like I say, trying to do as much exercise as possible.
We've all been there on the golf course, haven't we? You have a stinker of a round and then the 18th tee, you blaze it down the fairway.
Absolutely. And that just keeps dragging you back for more.
Every time.
That's what it is. But no, it was a lovely day. And Tuesday as well, the weather was good. And it was, once the sun started to get a little bit of heat in it, then you just felt, like I say, you just felt that season's not far away.
Well, I've just had an idea. We should have a 98 Not Out golf day.
Let's do
there
it.
You go. There you go.
I've never seen you play golf, Dazza, but I've heard a lot about it.
I'll bring my snooker cue along. That was the last time I played. My partner said, bring the snooker cue next time, it'll be easier.
It would have helped me today, let me tell you.
Now, Charlie, last time we had you on, it was amidst great excitement because you and Henry Moran were preparing to perform at the 100 Club in aid of the Teenage Cancer Trust. And that turned out to be an absolutely stonking evening. What are your memories of that?
Yeah, let me tell you, it's weird. So many things that were memorable. First off, the great thing is that the money we raised, we were delighted to do it. You know, it's not a fortune, but we raised £8,500. And that was only thanks to those who bought tickets and came along, and we were hugely grateful that anyone would want to see us. The fact that they did and hopefully had a good night was just an added bonus. But I mean, a lot of it was a blur. We were so nervous before we went on. Now, I don't drink. I'm not a drinking person, but even I had a snifter prior to going on. But so many things went right, loads of things went wrong, but you don't remember that. And the things that did go wrong, we were lucky that obviously my brother, who's a session musician, and his 2 session musician friends who came down to play with us. Anything that did go wrong, it was remedied before we even knew it. You know, because they had because they're so good, they were able to compensate for anything that we might have got wrong or whatever. But I one thing I did do was smash Butch in the head with the head of my bass, which I just felt honestly I was mortified because I gave him a proper good clunk on the forehead. One of the sort of the keys on the end of the bass hit him right above the eye, and I was like, oh my god! But he recovered quickly, and thank goodness he was there too as well, because he absolutely rocked his songs that he did, and it was just such a fun night. There's things that we learned from it that you might not do again, and just little some things. But the great thing was that lots of people took lots of footage, so we could see the people either enjoying themselves or just bopping along, or just us being ridiculous on stage. And so overall, it was fantastic. We will do it again. We don't know when, but obviously getting people in one place at the same time is not necessarily that easy. But we got a taste for it. We definitely got a taste for it. And everyone, Butch has said you should do it again. My brother has said do it again. So we might. The idea has been floated that we might do 3, one down south, one in the Midlands, one up north. And maybe we change charity as well. Maybe some children's hospitals would like to raise funds for, and stuff. But these are all in the embryonic phases of trying to decide. We've got to sort of get together, myself and Henry, and see if we we can do it, and maybe get a sponsor involved and stuff. But the idea is there. But it was great fun. It was such good fun, and hopefully everyone who did come who came to it had a really good time, and it was supposed to be ridiculous and fun and silly, and I think we managed to get that in spades.
You've not mentioned costumes.
The O2, the NEC, and what, Old Trafford?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Old Trafford will just about be able to squeeze all the people that do. We might have to do 2 nights at Old Trafford. But yeah, crikey, that would be maybe the Old Trafford substitutes bench we might be able to fill. But yeah, places, it was similar to what we played the other day, sort of smallish venues, and people can come along and donate if they want to, and we'll make it a little bit more relaxed on that front. But again, these are all just ideas that are popular. We might just do a big 80s night. We might just do with some rock in there, but we might stick a bit of bit of pop and electro in there. Who knows? But
you just want an excuse to wear the spandex again, don't you?
My God, I tell you what, yeah, it's a good job it was spandex, because I had a little sort of muffin top coming out of the the whole idea of being svelte and lean and all of that sort of stuff. And I put the spandex on. I was like, oh my God, thank God these trousers stretch. So I wore a very loose vest on top, and hopefully that gave away or I could hide a multitude of sins. So yeah, that was. But again, it just daft, just fun, and something that we're glad that we've got that much footage from other people to have a nice memory of the evening.
And there was Ebony Rainsford Brent channeling her Beyonce.
Yeah, I tell you what, we did about 20 songs. We learned 20. We learned 20 songs and played them pretty well. And Ebony comes on and does one song and takes all of the love and all of the plaudits for the night. But that was what it was meant to be, if you know what I mean. It was, she came on and absolutely owned it, and really got into the spirit of what the night was about. And I just loved what she did. And she totally nailed it. It was fantastic. All of our guests, we were just so grateful to have.
Now, you mentioned you're newly back in this country, and you've been on your travels. Just tell us where you've been and what you've been doing.
Yeah, well, this time last year we were talking. In fact, I think we did a 98 Night Out pod while I was in the Caribbean.
That's right. You were locked in your room.
That's right, for the men's under-19 World Cup. Well, I've just come back from South Africa for the women's under-19 World Cup, the first of its kind. It's a T20 tournament, not a 50-over tournament, which is, I think, absolutely right. I think that was... so we spent about 4 weeks in South Africa, starting in Johannesburg, but mainly in Potchefstroom, about 2 hours southwest of Joburg. And it was just joyous, mates. Let me tell you, it was a fabulous tournament. I mean, look, the majority of the tournament was streamed on the ICC website. It wasn't an all bells and whistles production, if you know what I mean. There was 6 cameras, but goodness me, the producers and directors and the cameramen and the graphics, they did so well to make it look like a proper, and it was a proper broadcast, but it was, they really worked hard and made it look good. And the players, gave plenty of opportunity for great fun. And what the tournament, towards the back end of the tournament, that's the business end. That's when the good teams came out and, really showed what they were made of and what talent is coming through. But that wasn't necessarily the whole story of the tournament. It was honestly, it was the purest cricket you'll ever see in your life. No one was thinking about dollars and cents or anything like that. They were there for the love of it, to represent their country, to wear the colours and the emblems of their country, and to celebrate that. And at times, of course, the standard could have been better but that I didn't care. I actually didn't care. The fact that we saw teams that we'd never seen before. There were 16 teams there, so you can imagine the 8 full member nations or 9 full member nations were all represented. But then we had Indonesia, we had the United States of America, we had Rwanda. 9 of the Rwandan team came through the Cricket Without Boundaries project. What a statement that is, that they're now representing their country on an international platform. So we had all of those countries there, Scotland, Ireland, Zimbabwe were there, and of course the full member nations too. And I just loved it. I loved it. Rwanda won 2 games. They were in the Super 6 tournament. They overturned the West Indies. These are great stories, but to see the girls celebrate, even Indonesia celebrating a wicket that they've taken, or 2 in 2 balls, or whatever it might be, and the way that they just exploded with joyous energy was fabulous. So on the one side, there was that part of the tournament. The other side for me was seeing genuinely what's coming through, and boy, was I in for a shock. I mean, I really was taken aback with some of the skills. I went in with no expectations, and because the women's game itself is still growing, and I was just blown away, especially by England, by Australia, by New Zealand, by India, by Bangladesh, as well. And I thought they were unlucky not to make the semi-finals. South Africa have got some really good players coming through. So I actually went away thinking there's some of these girls in these sides who should be, some are in the senior squads, but there is a lot that should be involved in this T20 World Cup that starts this weekend in South Africa, the senior women's T20 World Cup. So that was a huge lift for me to see what's coming through, who we might be seeing over the next decade or so. But also, for me, it shows you where the women's game is right now. Remember, these girls are 19 years old. They'll have grown up watching maybe Charlotte Edwards, Lydia Greenway, Tammy Beaumont, Lauren Winfield Hill. I'm talking about England specifically, but if you're Indian, watching Jalan Goswami or Mithali Raj, maybe the start of Harmanpreet's career. Because if you take it back, they're 19 now. They maybe took the game up when they were 10, 11 years old, something like that. And that was who was playing international cricket at that time. You know, maybe the Australian girls would have been watching the Australian women when they were winning when they were winning the World Cup in 2013. So who's that? Well, it's Lisa Sthalekar, and it's Alyssa Healy and Meg Lanning and you know, Elise Perry. All of those players that this generation that I've just watched in under-19s will have been watching those guys. And it made me think 10 years down the line that those under-19 cricketers are going to be watching Alice Capsey, Sophia Dunkley. They're going to be watching Marizanne Kapp and Chloe Tryon and Deandra Dotter, or maybe not in this World Cup, but these Hayley Matthews, Sophie Devine, you know, the Ash Gardner. So I think it is only going, the women's game anyway, we know is going, you know, upwards in a very, very, very sharp rise. I don't think we've scratched the surface of what could be happening over the next 10 years or so. Now we're seeing the results of the first amount of exposure the women's game got. Now it's so regular to see them on our television screens, to see the women's game celebrated and played in the way that it is, in the manner that it's been put into the public consciousness. I think 10 years down the line, it's going to be scary what is being produced around the world.
And to your point, of course, it's, you know, it's now a genuinely global game as well. It's not just the big nations that are playing it. You have got, you know, the relative minnows like Rwanda. So it's global and everyone's embracing it, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And here was the other thing I thought, and you know, take this the way that it's intended. Men's cricket has been played in a certain way for a long, long period of time. And those involved, you know, to try and get into the club, if you like, is pretty difficult. Now, Ireland have done it recently, Afghanistan have done it recently, before them Bangladesh and the like. But it's not necessarily that easy to become, you know, at a level of Australia or India or England or whoever. In the women's game, it's slightly different. So let's say you're Zimbabwe, okay? Now, Zimbabwe have been playing men's cricket for a long, long time. And their resources aren't great. Their side as well isn't that great. It's competitive, but it's not brilliant. It's you know, they're not going to win a World Cup tomorrow. So in a weird way, if you actually thrust a load of resources in Zimbabwe at the women's game, it's not going to take a lot for them to actually get to the standard necessary, with better coaching, with better facilities, with better time, or you know, allowing the players to develop in that country. It wouldn't actually take a huge amount for the Zimbabwe to become actually elite in the women's game. So it makes me think, well, are you actually backing the right horses now? because they could very well win a World Cup in 10 years in the women's game if they had the backing and stuff. Now, of course, whether that happens or whether that doesn't happen, it was just a random thought that floated through my mind. But you look at Rwanda. If I'm the Rwandan Cricket Association, I'm thrusting loads of money and resources of what I have, and it won't be much, but I am taking what I've got and say, well, we've just been in the ICC, full-on ICC Under-19 World Cup, and we're mixing it with the West Indies, with South Africa, with Pakistan and India and England. You know, we want to see this as a regular thing. So actually, let's, you know, the men are unlikely to going to be doing that in ICC competitions, but the women can. So that was kind of what floated through my mind. But yeah, it is a global game, and there are things you can do in the women's game, because I talk about it in its infancy. Of course, it's been going on for a long, long time, way, way back in time. It's been going on. I'm talking about its infancy in public consciousness, the exposure it's got. That's only happened in the last 10 years. It really has. You know, I did the 2013 Women's World Cup over in India, and only the games in Mumbai were covered. The games in Calcutta, in Cuttack, they weren't even covered. They weren't streamed. There weren't nothing, absolutely nothing. The thought of that now is laughable. So it has only been 10 years since the women's game has been covered at any standard. Now it's covered all the time. And that is only beneficial to nations that want to make a name for themselves within ICC competitions. And I think this is a fabulous way of doing it. Great to see the United States involved. You know, that's a big coup for the ICC as well. You know, they got to qualify. They didn't, you know, they're the only one with any facility, so they got automatic qualification. But goodness me, they didn't show themselves up. They really didn't. And I know that that's an avenue. I'm sure that the ICC want to try and market, get involved in. You know, Major League Cricket's going to be happening next year, or this coming summer, I think it is. So, you know, breaking North America in that way, or breaking America, I should say, the United States is a big fillip for the ICC, and I'm sure we're going to see much more from them in the future.
It was a really good time to be in South Africa this winter, wasn't it? With all the women's cricket that was been going on, England have been down there playing ODIs with the men's, and then that SA20 league, which was really entertaining watching. And there seems to have been a bit of a change of heart with regards to franchise cricket. Andrew Strauss spoke at the MCC Spirit of Cricket lecture last week, and all of a sudden is embracing it. And, you know, whereas, you know, the stuffed Blazers before had been very sniffy about franchise cricket, are realising that this is the way it's going.
Well, it is. And you look at it is the way it's going, and you look at where it's coming from. And that's the thing I look at as well. There's only a certain amount of, I mean, obviously, the thing about franchise leagues is that there is money involved. There's better money than there is in Test cricket. For broadcast rights, it's a sexier view on TV. You know, you can get as many advertisers, sponsors, and all of that involved. And you know, when money is being made, then that's obviously going to be where the interest lies from a financial perspective. From a, you know, the South African league. South Africa tried to do their own league before.
Yeah,
they couldn't do it. No one was that interested. It was only until India got involved with money. There's no money in South Africa. Absolutely no money. So, but where the money is in India for cricket. So when they have aligned themselves with IPL sides, and each side has got a specific franchise associated with it, then they can afford for those particular players, Josh Butler and Jofra Archer and all of these players who play IPL can go and play in South Africa because the IPL are basically paying them to do that. And that in turn then interests bigger broadcasters with more pay TV deals and stuff like that. And so it's a kind of, it's a cyclical thing where they needed to get India involved. And in so doing, hopefully that will galvanize those in South Africa who are watching it. You know, the punters from the local area to come and watch it, get excited about cricket, and maybe that's where it produces some more. No, I like that as a concept. I do. It'd be lovely and romantic to say, well, they should be doing it themselves. They don't have the money. If you've not got the money, you can't do anything. So I think that that South Africa are onto a winner there. Now, who has got money? Well, Australia's got money, England's got money, and India have got money. The big three. Okay, they've got money. Now, England have got the 100 competition, which is started by the ECB, and it's sold very well, and it's done brilliantly, and therefore they've got their own little thing there. South Africa have now got the SA20, which is aligned with the IPL, and Australia have got the Big Bash League, etc. The PSL, which has started, and obviously the IPL and the PSL are going on at the moment because the interest is there. In South Africa, the interest wasn't necessarily there, but the PSL is always going to generate interest because of who's going to watch it and where it is. The love of cricket in Pakistan is always going to draw people in, and especially when you know it's dazzling type of tournament, you're going to get people through the gates because they love it, because of the culture that is there. And so, franchise cricket sometimes is looked, as you mentioned, it's still looked by a certain element down upon. But it's essential. It is essential. You look at how many, for players, let's think about players. Time was, if you went on an England tour, you had to either get a job in the wintertime, or you would go to a club overseas that wouldn't pay you anything, but you'd break even. They would pay you a little bit of beer money and give you a bit of transport and give you a place to stay, and you would play cricket at the weekends. 63 county players have been involved in franchise tournaments this winter.
Yeah.
63.
Yeah.
If you're someone like James Vince or Jake Ball or, Ben Duckett or whoever it might be, I might not be using particularly good examples there, but, they'll have played in maybe 2 or 3 franchise tournaments this winter for good money.
Yeah.
And they totally deserve to. And if it's there, I would say, go on, go and earn it. It's the way the sport has become now. It pays for the cricket that the stuff shirts like, if you like. I love Test cricket. Test cricket is still and always will be the ultimate in cricket. Of course it will. But only a few countries have enough people coming through the turnstiles to actually warrant it, And that is, I go back to the big 3.
Yeah.
When England play India or India play Australia, as they're doing now, there'll be people through the gates. But otherwise, it's, franchise tournaments now, there's no time for tours to take place that, involve warm-up games or anything like that. There's just, England are on tour in New Zealand. They're playing, a 2-test series, and they've had a 2-day game between themselves against a New Zealand select 11. That's it. That's all they're getting prior to the start of a test series. So, franchise tournaments, are there too many to keep an eye on? Well, yes, there are. When I was out doing the South Africa under-19 Women's World Cup, it was quite funny. I looked at the app, the Cricket Scores app, and our tournament was going on. The SA20 was going on. The IL20, the Dubai League, was going on at the same time. India were playing New Zealand in one-day cricket. England men were playing South Africa in one-day cricket. Bangladesh were playing against somebody else in one. I'm just thinking, how do you keep across all of this? You just can't. You absolutely can't. But there's obviously people watching it on TV. In Dubai, the crowds haven't been great. They were never going to be great. But it's more about a television audience that they can sell it to and stuff. And then, if they're making money from it, if players are doing it, well, then so be it. That is the nature of the beast now. And always, if there's money involved, then it's gonna be something that actually happens.
Darren, I've had an idea.
Well,
Daggers is talking about that and sponsorship and money. We need to get 98 Not Out involved in one of the franchise tournaments or all of them, and any batter that finishes 98 not out, they win a cash prize or a set of saucepans or something.
Well, I think a set of saucepans is. I think you should don't go with cash. If there's too much cash in game, it should be something completely random. You win a Corby trouser press, or something like that. Something that they would never ever use, but that could be synonymous with the podcast. I totally agree.
They got away with giving away microwaves in Pakistan, didn't they, recently? So
you get all sorts. I love watching the cricket in Pakistan. I do. It makes me howl laughing. But they do it. They've got to do it. That's who's paying for it. So I will always now. Butcher's going out there Sunday.
Yeah, he is.
He's going out to the Pakistan Super League, and I'm envious of him going to do that, and also for those who are in South Africa at the moment, do the main women's T20 World Cup. I'd love to be doing that. But what is it? Life's too short for sensitive teeth. I still remember the strap line. Sensodyne, life's too short for sensitive teeth.
hang on, Charlie. Hang on, Charlie. It's time for a Tipak tea break.
There it is, the Tapal tea break. There we go. So these things, it's really, really funny. The advertising we laugh at or whatever. That it's unusual to be done in the way that it's done, but goodness me, we remember it, don't we?
Oh yeah, so it's working.
It does its job.
All right, before we let you go, so what are you up to next? What are you're back in this country? The sun's coming out. We can smell the grass and the cuttings and
can't wait. Well, at the moment, I have a few irons in the fire. Just prior to going to the county season starting, to the domestic season starting. We'll wait and see how that goes. I've got a couple of functions as well that I'll be speaking at. But now it really is kind of the build up. If those irons in the fire come off, it will be absolutely brilliant. But we'll wait and see. I'm keeping a low one on those. Just in case they don't happen. Because they may not. There's probably a very strong likelihood that they won't. And then we have obviously everything's been shifted. So I'm hoping that I do as much for Sky this year as I did last year, and I imagine in a similar kind of vein with the women's internationals, the women's Ashes this year. The Vitality Blast, which starts a little bit earlier this year in Birmingham on May the 20th. Hoping to be heavily involved in that, and the 100 as per. And then usually towards the back end of the summer, there's another women's series of one dayers and T20s. So, and then obviously the business end of the county championship season. So that is what I hope is occurring. I keep my fingers crossed that it is. But yeah, just it's now that, like I say, it's that time where you can almost touch it. You really can. I know it's February and all of that, but you know, as soon as March hits, it's a short month, February. As soon as March hits, that really is, you know, getting into pre-season mode, and you know, it all just starting to dawn on us that another season is upon us.
And I would suggest if anyone listening to this or watching this is responsible for organising any dinners, functions, whatever else, book Charles Dagnall. I've seen him in action, and he's got some cracking stories. One of them is the funniest story I've ever heard told, and I've been to a lot of cricket dinners. But and you know the one I'm talking about.
Is it the Kevin Peterson story?
Yeah, Kevin Peterson story is the funniest, and the way you tell it, honestly, book Charlie Dagnall for your function. You will not be disappointed.
That is very, very kind. I was actually speaking in Essex relatively recently, just before Christmas, at Hutton Cricket Club.
Oh,
I was down there at the Hutton Cricket Club, and it was lovely. Had a really lovely time down there, and stuff. A really good audience, and had a great giggle, and stuff. But bless you for saying that. It's I love speaking at gigs. I don't host many gigs anymore now because you know, I genuinely did a lot of them, and I started to not enjoy them. However, speaking I adore.
You're very good. I
love going to clubs, meeting people. That's where, you know, and I say this when I'm there, is that I'm not giving away any stories or anything like that, but it's easy to forget when you're talking about Ben Stokes, or you're talking about Josh Butler, or you're talking about Sam Billings, or you're talking about Amy Jones or Nat Silverbrunt, or whoever it may be. They all came from clubs. They all had their own local clubs. Yeah. And there's volunteers down there that sort of guided them on their way to great success. And I can't tell you how lovely it is to go to clubs and speak to people, and they want to tell you their stories of who they've met and who they've seen through, and to celebrate their own club. You know, as I still do with my own home local club back in Lancashire. So it's lovely to say so, and fingers crossed they'll be busy as well, and I can come down to some clubs if you're listening to this.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure as always, Charlie. Good luck for the season, and we look forward to hearing your voice, and hopefully seeing you in the flesh at some point over the summer.
Yeah, we certainly shall.
Many thanks.
Pleasure, guys. Lovely talking to you as ever.